Dan from HeadMania, and today we're going to talk about the new Hifiman HE-1000 AC Unveiled. And if you have read any of my past reviews, you will know that the original HE-1000 AC was one of my favorite headphones. Why? Because that headphone was really precise. It could stop on a dime. It was really good in dynamics, and one of the most tactile headphones I've ever heard before I got to the Solitaire P. And I actually, if you remember, I actually liked them more than Susvara overall. It was a decision based on the cost itself and the fact that they offered incredible value compared to Susvara's. And it doesn't take a monster amplifier or a speaker amplifier to drive them, right? I think that from a precision perspective, the HE-1000 AC was a bit more precise than the Susvara's. And I listened to Susvara's in different systems, on different amplifiers, strong ones, and one of the best and stuff like that. I still kept my original thoughts. However, Susvara was winning in terms of tonality, in terms of bass impact, vocals. So overall, I like the HE-1000 AC for the technical proficiency in terms of dynamics and precision, especially the leading edges and tactility. Well, today we're going to talk about the HE-1000 AC Unveiled, which is the new version of the original ones. If you have seen my previous review on the Solitaire P, I was actually having a small rant over there related to the Unveiled models, and I actually was talking about Susvara, because the new Unveiled version from Susvara is actually $8,000 compared to $6,000, which was the original Susvara. That got me a little bit annoyed, because with the Unveiled, basically a Hifiman moved part of the risk to the consumer, right? Even if it sounds better, let's say, the risk is quite high in terms of, injuring the headphones or basically having accidents with the headphones. That was basically my whole rant about. In this case, this is a bit different. Why? Because the HE-1000 AC Unveiled is actually not very expensive. It actually kind of kept the original pricing of the HE-1000 AC. And while I was a bit skeptical in terms of performance, I said, okay, let's listen to them. And I'm very impressed. And this is why we're doing the review, because as you know, my website or whatever YouTube channel doesn't review any products that I don't like, because this is not something I do for business. This is something I do for pleasure. This is my hobby, right? So I'm not going to lose time writing about products that I don't enjoy. Certainly, this is one of the products that I enjoy a lot. And let's talk a bit about them. First of all, you can see that they have this metal plating here, and you don't have to listen with them on. I would give you a suggestion now, because it's not very easy to remove them. If you try to remove them, you either have to push them like this and drag it like this to get it out of the inside of the cup, and but you still have a chance of, while doing that, to remove by mistake this one and touch the driver. Also, bear in mind that when you do this, because it's a magnetic system, it's not very well put in place here. It's not very well sticked here. You have to be attentive when you take it out, because in the process you might actually hit the driver. So I think for removing them, this is the best way. Put them on your head, remove the cups, right? And in this part, I know where they are because I watched myself in the video. You can put them back on. You can also put them back on when you take them off, right? But for the purpose of showing you the drivers, this is how it looks without the metal plating. This is the metal plating on the inside. So, looks quite nice, but that's the actual driver with the magnets. So be careful with that. I have kids, and I have a special room for listening to my audio stuff in my office, basically. This is my office. To some degree, this is less risky for me, right? But sometimes the kids even get into the office, of course. So be careful. I don't recommend letting this in a place where everybody can enter, even when you put this on, right? Because it's quite easy to remove them by mistake. Okay, so I'm gonna put them here for a while. Let's talk about the sound. Why do I like them very much? I like them very much because they fixed everything I wanted to be fixed from the HE-1000 AC, the original ones. What I didn't like about those headphones was the tonality. It had like a peak between 2 and 3 kilohertz, which made the upper mid-range a bit shouty. That was quite apparent when you're listening to music. Either instruments or vocals were a bit shouty. The sub bass is now extremely linear. So basically, you don't have this curve. You'll see the measurements. And by the way, check out my written review because you'll have more information there with the measurements and everything. The bass is actually quite linear. It's like a dead line right over there. From 20 hertz to the end of the bass, basically it's a flat line. That's amazing, right? So basically the sub bass is better on the Unveiled than the original. So you'll get more information over there. I had some problems sometimes with the peak at the 7 to 8 kilohertz or the original HE-1000 AC, which was kind of bright sometimes. It was not like the HD800 from Sennheiser, but still a bit annoying sometimes, and on some music it was getting a bit tiresome after a while. So that was removed. You'll see that the overall experience is considerably more linear. And if you ask me, the tonality has changed a lot for the better. Even the vocals sound better. So the vocals were shoutier, especially the female vocals, because the upper mid-range spike, which now is considerably better because it has been reduced a lot, without making them recessed, right? Actually, between 1 and 2 kilohertz with the Unveiled, you have more information a bit because they brought up the frequency response a bit closer to the bass, right? So you get more information overall and more linear experience overall, not only in the bass section, but also in the mid-range from the beginning to the end of the mid-range, and also in the treble section. So that being said, basically, if I had some doubt between the HE-1000 AC and Susvaras, and I picked the HE-1000 AC over Susvara because of the cost, I can surely say now that I much prefer this to the original Susvaras. Let's go a bit to how they sound overall. So if you go directly from the bass section, the performance is superb, right? It hits like a truck. It's very linear, it's very accurate, and very controlled. And it's better than the original HE-1000 AC, which was very good in terms of control and the punch. Now it's entirely better also because of the fact that it goes deeper. So it is more linear, basically more correct, if you can say that. So that's a win over there in the bass section. If you go to the mid-range, the mid-range is now considerably better because the overall experience that I mentioned before. So it is considerably more natural, let's say, because you don't have these discrepancies in the frequency response. The frequency response between 1 and 2 kilohertz has been a bit dragged up, and the shout between 2 and 3 was dragged down, so it's not that peak anymore. So it's not this contrast between frequency ranges. So it's a much better experience over there. It sounds more natural. It brings up more details and more textures. So that's again a win. In the treble section, it's you know, the originally the Hifiman generally have good treble in terms of sharpness, detail, even tactility. The treble, it's good. However, sometimes it's a bit tiresome, and that's what's definitely the case with the original HE-1000 AC, because it had a spike between 7 and 8 kilohertz. Now it doesn't, so it keeps the very good linear experience in terms of it's sharp, it's detailed, it's tactile, but it's not bright anymore, right? So definitely another win over there. When it comes to the dynamics, the original HE-1000 AC was great, already great. As I told you, one of the best headphones I've ever heard in terms of leading edges, clarity, in terms of transient response, in terms of attacking transient response, and speed. So it hasn't necessarily changed a lot there. So it was already great, and it's still great, right? So it has wonderful prat, wonderful tactility, wonderful dynamics in general. The soundstage, again, the soundstage was quite good on the HE-1000 AC, but now it's even better. Why? It's going to be more open in that regard. It's at one point a song of a Viking song entered my playlist randomly. Let me see what it was. You'll have to see the written review for that. But it was, in this case, Svanrand by Futa. It's the impact there. Of course, the drum was like, it took me by surprise. It just hit me. I almost fell off the chair. But the vocal and how it was put into scene is like an infinite soundstage somehow. Like the world was the soundstage, the whole. So that's something that I love a lot about this headphone. Sometimes it sounds a bit too big. It's not like the H1000 where the soundstage sometimes becomes a bit too artificial in terms of the size, amplified, but it has some of that, right? So it's a very big sound, and sometimes it feels a bit bigger than it should. But definitely something that I enjoy a lot about these headphones. I would say that also the details are better than the original because of the frequency response and the things that they did over there. So it brings more detail, more textures into the listening experience, all over the frequency response, right? From the bass, which is brings more detail into the sub bass, to the mid-range that between 1 and 2 kilohertz, and the treble as well, because you don't have the discrepancy and contrast between some peaks and dips. So yeah, overall it's great. Actually, for this price, I would say that is really, really hard to beat, right? Now, let's talk about, of course, the comfort is great. I forgot to mention that. You forget about them on your head. But I would say that in terms, if you think about some cons, let's say, the design, right? So you have to make sure that you put this on every time. When you take them off and on, you have to be very careful because you can hurt the driver. Even if you let them somewhere, like I leave them here, I leave them on the back part of the of this near the computer, because I don't want anybody to touch them and by mistake for this to come off. At one point, I actually tried to do another review, but I didn't like how it went, and when I was showing this, removing this, I was trying to remove this, the other part came off, so I almost had an accident over there, right, while filming it. So this is something you have to consider if you have the right environment to use this, and if you have the right or the patience to take this off again and put it on again, without hasting. Because if you if you do it in haste, you might hurt the driver. So this is one thing. In terms of the sound, again, this is a really hard to beat headphone. It's one of the best I've ever heard. However, keep in mind that this is a subjective experience, and it's a very linear sound experience. So this comes with a lot of positives, but sometimes this linear experience comes with some drawbacks in terms of it might become a bit tiresome after a while. They're not as euphonic, for example, like ZMF HeadMania or ZMF Caldera or even the Solitaire P. It brings a lot of information in the same basically wall of sound because they're linear, and that can be a bit tiresome after a few, let's say, hours of listening to them, right? But I also tested them in movies and games, and they were quite good in that as well. A lot of detail was brought on. The spatial cues were good, and the effects were sounding nice, right? Explosive and everything you did. Now let's do a short comparison to the Solitaire P. These are the Solitaire P right over here, and if you have seen my review on them, these are my favorite headphones at this point in time, and you probably know why if you've seen my review. Let's compare them a little. So it's a very interesting perspective, because I think that if I think about it from a higher level, these are not it seems like they're more complementary. Why? Because these are more darker headphones. And if you compare them to the HE-1000 AC Unveiled, are more colored in general, because they are darker. They have, you'll see in the measurements and the comparison between the measurements. They have the bass section elevated compared to the one, because the mid range is lower, so it goes lower in the dB. So the bass automatically is up there. So that's definitely a more colored headphone, the Solitaire P, right? I would say that the more linear experience of the HE-1000 AC Unveiled is quite different. I would say that also it might be subjective, so you definitely need to listen to both headphones before making a decision. And you know that I've told you I'm trying to be objective, but nobody can in this hobby. The ears are different, the canal is different, how we interpret the sound is different from person to person. So that's why if you have the choice or you have the option, always try to listen, especially at these prices, to the products that you are going to buy. So I would say that I'm actually considering of buying the HE-1000 AC Unveiled as a complementary options to the Solitaire P, but overall I still prefer the Solitaire P because while it is a darker experience, I like the fact that the bass is more. So it's still more visceral. It's a still more visceral experience. It both have a similar impact in terms of punch, but sometimes Solitaire P punch more because they have more weight, because it's more up front. The bass is closer, it's upper in dB than the mid-range. This is this translates, for example, in many things, but I would say that the bass is more present, and that translates to including when it hits you more with more body. It's like being hit like by a big boxing glove, right? Besides that, the mid-range is a bit recessed compared to the Unveiled, right? So sometimes it feels like it brings more clarity. The Unveiled brings a bit more clarity. However, after some time of listening to both headphones, I still feel that the Solitaire P offers excellent details and excellent presence, even if some instruments are a bit further away into the scene, right? So I would say that this actually creates an interesting holographical experience, because with the HE-1000 AC being a more linear experience, sometimes it kind of feels like a wall of sound coming to you with everything in the same part of the wall. While with the Solitaire P, some of the vocals and some of the instruments are a bit placed a bit further away in the scene, and I feel that this somehow creates the more holographical experience a more natural overall experience to my ears. So basically, the soundstage is also great in Solitaire P. It's a bigger on the Unveiled. It's a bit more open. While this is a bit deeper, and the Solitaire P is a bit deeper and more holographic. In general, I feel that the instruments are a bit more better placed in around the room than with the Unveiled, but I think that's because of the frequency response. The vocals are great on both headphones, but to some degree, the Unveiled offers more clarity, especially on the female vocals, because the upper mid-range has better presence. These are... However, I still feel that the Solitaire P sound more natural to my ears. So I still have the feeling that when I hear vocals and actually some instruments as well, I have the feeling of real lifelike experience, and I have to check around the room to see if it's there. So this sometimes happens with other headphones as well, but it didn't went so deep. So I realized after less than a second that it was because of the headphones. With the Solitaire P, it went deeper than that, and I needed to look around the room. And the vocals are, for example, let's take Leonard Cohen, and male vocals in general sound considerably more visceral and presence and textures on the Solitaire P, while the other ones are also great in that department, but it doesn't sound especially as natural. I think this might also be a subjective thing, but definitely something to consider. The female vocals are, again, a bit further away in the back with the Solitaire P, but still offer great presence and natural experience, if you ask me. In terms of details, they're not very... I mean, they're quite interesting, because there are some places where they Unveiled offer a bit more detail, especially in the treble section, in the mid-range, where this is more recessed. But overall, I still think that they're quite close, I would say. But let's take plucks, guitar strings, and guitar plucks and strings in general. I still think that this is the Solitaire P is more detailed. It offers more impact. The strings are more visceral. The impact is better, and basically more energy into the string vibration than on the Unveiled, right? So I don't think I know any headphone that can beat this in that. For example, let's say Johnny Cash, right? When the plucks of the guitar, they're so tactile on the Solitaire P, and so visceral, so full of energy and life. I cannot say any other headphones that can do something like the Solitaire P. It's still great on the Unveiled, but it's different. So overall, I would say that in the detail section, I think it's a matter of perspective and which frequencies you like the most. I think they're not very far from each other. In the tonality, let's go to the tonality now. The tonality, I still think tonality-wise, is the Solitaire P is more natural to my ears. Again, this translates into the soundstage as well. This translates into the vocals. This translates into instruments and stuff like that. So even if they are more colored, somehow they sound more natural to my ears. So it's another example where linearity doesn't necessarily win the room. And especially, again, this might be a subjective experience. If you want a more correct linear experience, you might go with the Unveiled. I'm not sure if I forgot anything for this comparison. Let me check. But no, I think I went through most of the most important things. I would say that, of course, this price difference between the two is not small. I think it's still a difference between Solitaire P and Unveiled. I still prefer overall Solitaire P, but this is amazing. So Unveiled is amazing because it offers like a very linear experience. It's great from end to end. It actually complements the Solitaire P in a lot of things, right? So, and I'm actually might consider buying that as well because I like them so much. Oh, I forgot to mention something in the videos and movies and stuff like that. I was actually looking into some movies. I felt like those offer a lot of micro detail of the scene, and like this one offers a bit better spatial cues. And for example, a motor rumble is more natural and more visceral. The vocals are a bit more natural. The explosions are have a bit more depth, but those are great in all of the departments as well. But so basically, both headphones are good here. Again, it depends on the preferences. But overall, I would say the Solitaire P wins in terms of natural and the natural experience in movies and games, while those brings a bit more spatial cues, right? And the scene details in the listening experience. And I'm talking about Unveiled in the last part. So yeah, the Unveiled is a great headphone. It's very hard to beat, especially at that price. And I think at any price, if you consider it, if you like this Hifiman sound and the linear experience, you will love them, right? So just bear in mind the fact that it has this risk in the design because of the plates. I would have liked a bit better clamping system than they offer today, but other than that, they're great and they're not very hard to amplify. Actually, Solitaire P requires more power. I'm not saying anything about Susvaros, which you require a lot of power. It was a breeze for Bliss to drive them. Solitaire P, I have to go to 16, I believe, and this 20 something. So the Unveiled, I need 23 or something like that. So also a win there, if you ask me. They don't require a lot of power. They will scale with a better system, of course. If you have a very good DAC or amplifier, they will sound better. So yeah, that's it. Great headphones. I would recommend them. I recommend them. They are great headphones. They're very hard to beat at any price. Just bear in mind of the fact that you need to be very attentive with them and listen to them in terms of making sure that you like this linearity aspect of the sound. But other than that, yeah, definitely great headphones. So jump Hifiman there. I would. It's also good that you did not bump up the price like you did with the Susvaras while moving the risk to the consumer. So thank you. Don't forget to subscribe, like the video, and see you in the next one.